Hi, Jyoti. How are you?
I'm good. Yes, enjoying the lovely warm weather today. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Hello, everybody. I hope that you have found us here. And today I'm joined by Jyoti Manuel, who is the leading light on children's yoga and yoga for special children in particular. Now, Jyoti, you've been in the yoga scene, well, not you're not brand new in it. I think that we were just quickly discussing when was your first class that you taught?
1974. No,
Which
so
year was that?
I stepped into my first class in 1974. Yeah.
1974 was the first class you practiced. And when did you start teaching?
Um, Probably late 80s, mid late 80s. Yeah.
Amazing. You have got a wealth of experience, and in that time between the late 80s and now, you've done a number of remarkable things. You set up the Special Yoga Centre, which was in London, and now it's transformed into a whole other beast. Will you talk me through your journey teaching yoga to children?
Wow. Okay. So I guess I started teaching kids in the late 80s. Actually, when I first started teaching, not because I meant to, just because that's what happened. So there was a
Mm.
mistress of a school in Tower Hamlets actually at the time who said to me, "I think the children need you," and I'm like, "Oh, really?" Hmm. So I went into the school, and of course, I saw these kids, who today probably would be diagnosed with ADHD
Mm.
or learning disabilities, chewing pencils, anxious, not wanting to be in their bodies. And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. So I thought, because I experienced a lot of that sensation as a child of not wanting to really be here and much more comfortable out of my body than in my body.
Mm.
And I had quite a traumatic childhood as well. So it was really, so I was kind of looking at these kids going, oh, I know what that feels like. I really know what it feels like not to want to be here. So I thought, well, I have no idea what I'm doing, but let's try and give them the tools that I had found for myself that helped me to feel more stable, to feel more comfortable in my being, to just sort of be able to be here at any given moment. And I mean, that was how it really kind of started. And then also, I had people with disability that arrived in my classes as well. I think on the third or fourth adults class, I taught a blind man and his dog showed up completely unexpectedly. And there was a woman in the class who was terrified of dogs. And I'm standing there going, okay, and breathe. So what do you do here? So any class plan goes out the window at any, I mean, and I actually to this day have never used a class plan since. Because what it taught me was just that more than anything, what we need to do is be present to people that are there, and that if I had my class plan, I would never have been able to navigate that situation. So that was the beginning of my journey, and then it kind of took varying, as all of life's journeys always do anyway, takes you on kind of journeys down your own rivers. My older daughter was born in 1992, and one of her friends, one of her mother's mother friend,
Mm.
said, "Oh, come on, get these kids on the mat." So by one, they're all on mats with me, crawling around all over the living room, on top of us, underneath us, within us, and just that was kind of, so it became part of my life and my home, and then later on, I adopted my second child, and that was a whole nother journey of different needs and different requirements. And in between that, I'd set up special yoga, and I'd started I'd met Sonia Sumar at that stage, who was one of the pioneers of children's of work for children with special needs, and I worked with her for many years. And then she and I parted ways in, I think, 2012 or somewhere around there. But in between that, special yoga was formed, and by the time we closed our doors, we were seeing, I don't know, maybe 150 kids a week there, as well as plus kids in schools, plus we were traveling overseas, sharing the teachings globally. So it was kind of just a constant, I don't know, learning. And I still to this day don't feel like I'd really teach anything. I share what I learn. The teachers, everybody teaches me, because it's just always such a sharing of, learning of, how you respond to people, what that does to you inside, that kind of dance of mirroring and who you are and who they are, and, and what are they actually telling you if you're quiet enough to listen, and, how do you start to read energy and just kind of work with that.
Mm.
So it's been a ongoing and continues to be a beautiful journey. We've now, because of COVID, created a new online platform, which is interesting. We've got people from literally all over the world joining us, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
so the journey continues.
Always.
I'm glad to hear it. Well, what we wanted to talk about, what I thought might be an interesting thing to talk about, because I don't have kids, but a lot of my friends have, and a lot of people are going through, they've been telling me there's been a lot of anxiety with children in these tricky times, in these unsettling times. And they've been asking me for yogic hints and tips and things like that. Obviously, I'm the wrong person to talk to, but I do know a woman who does know a thing or two.
Yeah. It's an interesting time, though, at the moment, because there is a collective anxiety that everybody is having the experience of. And the kids obviously have it too. And, sort of not being able to see family and being in lockdown and seeing news and also seeing their parents really upset and worried about the future, which I think is the case for an awful lot of people at the moment, because we are living in these really uncertain times. It's really tricky for kids. And actually, I think that one of the things I learned from my youngest daughter, who I said I adopted, was that I was her rock. And if I wasn't stable, she was unstable. And I think that we forget as parents how important it is that we take care of ourselves. And I think when the anxiety levels in the kind of collective are as high as they are, the first place we need to deal with is us. Actually, because it's like being on an airplane. They said you put your mask on before you put the kids' mask on. And I think it's the same principle, is that when you're filled up and you're stable and you're okay, then the kids are going to just receive that. And I think there's a kind of not enough awareness of the fact that our state as the mother, as the rock in many, I'm not saying the fathers aren't rocks too, but the kind of parental rock of the family is solid in its stability for the child, because that's what the child's going to feel. So you can say whatever you like to a child, but if you're anxious, they're going to feel your anxiety, because 80% of communication is nonverbal. So it's not so much of what you say as much as how you are. I think there's a real place of forgetting that. So that need to just take care of yourself and to navigate your own anxiety before you even think about navigating the anxiety of your child is going to be probably the most profound thing that you can do. And then, of course, what I also am aware of is that when we're in very high levels of anxiety, we're no longer in our bodies. We're living somewhere sort of usually up here, and energetically we're out. And so anything that I would do from a kind of tool, from the perspective of tools, would be how do we get children back into their bodies? How do I stay in my body, let alone them? So, I think that there are different practices that are not archetypically yoga that I would use to bring to come in. So I tend to do a lot of squeezing with children, because what it does is it brings me into my body. And if you just take a moment just to squeeze down through your arms and right the way down to your hands, right the way down to your fingers, all the way through your hands, you can just do one arm at a time. And what happens then is you start to feel your body. You start to feel sensation in your body. And all of a sudden then I'm here. And I can do the same thing down my legs. So I would start at my thighs and work down my legs to my feet, all the way down. And then all of a sudden you have a completely different sensation of where you are in space.
Right.
Because one of the things I think anxiety takes you to is a disassociation and a disconnect. I think in psychotherapeutic terms, they would say it's disassociation. But the higher the anxiety, the more the disassociation will take place. So I generally would start here. And we with the children do, as you've seen from the videos that I've done for you, a lot of singing. So we can tap our bodies and we can sing to our bodies and we can sing to the cells of our bodies. But what we want to do is to bring ourselves back energetically into an embodied state where we start to explore sensation, because as soon as you do that, you're out of the state up here. And that's really where we want to take the children to. So I tend to use a lot of squeezing, a lot of self-massage, a lot of tapping practices as well. So we have on our online platform, we have a lot of free resources actually. And so there are tapping practices and squeezing practices and shaking as well. We can shake things off our body. So if we're feeling worried or if we're feeling, wobbly, we can just really ground through our feet. Just spend some time really, what's the sensation of your feet on the ground as we stand? So can you really feel the contact your feet are making on the ground? And if you stretched your toes, does that change your sensation? So you could lift your big toe, then you could lift your little toe, then you could lift your five toes. You can play around with that. You can even get a party trick going with your big toe and your little toe, maybe, or the little toes. And then all of a sudden you're out of your head. It's very simple actual practices that just help you to descend. And then once our feet are on the ground, we could shake through our body, just shaking, shaking, shaking. And the knees, just shaking through your body. We can tap through our bodies. We can squeeze our bodies. And then, of course, your breath changes because you've moved things around. You've shifted energy. You've cleared energetic blockages in your energy system. And then your breath changes. And then we can start to do breathing practices where we can imagine that we have a beautiful ball of light in front of us and we can just breathe in and breathe out. And you can slow that down. You can count with it. So you could take it to 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, and really start to help the child to slow their breath down. I'm not going to guide it because you need to guide it with the child because you guide it to the child's breath capacity rather than necessarily to mine. But you wanted to start to just breathe it in, breathe it out. You can also breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. And then all of a sudden your status changes. And then if the child needs to stretch, you stretch. Stretching is always useful. Asana is always useful. But I wouldn't start with asanas generally.
Ah, that's interesting. Because, of course, this is where most of my friends with kids are starting. They're like, okay, my kid is anxious, do a tree pose.
Tree pose is an interesting one, though, because tree pose requires you to concentrate on your foot and your balance.
Ah, right.
If you were to choose an asana to start with,
that would be a bad one. Not a bad one to start with.
Before I even went into tree, I would explore what it feels like to have your feet on the ground. Because one of the things I feel always feels really important with the kids is how do we get them to come away from this and their bodies?
Yeah.
So what do your feet feel like? What does it feel like when you wiggle your toes? How can you start to explore different kinds of sensation? And you can make it fun and playful. I'm not saying that it's very serious or anything. But if you start to just, wow, how high can you get your big toe? Wow. How high can you get your toes? Wow. So all of a sudden, then you start to engage them, and their energy drops. So actually, tree pose wouldn't be a bad place to start.
No, not a bad place to start. I like that. That's a good one. But it's interesting that it's because I think being embodied is a practice which I certainly find hard, and I think most adults find hard. And even I've been practicing yoga for a very long time, and embodiment is still something that eludes me a lot of the time. It's a lot still in the head, and I suppose it's not helped by a lot of us do very cerebral work.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the way that a lot of the work in our society is. It's all in your head, and your body is a little bit irrelevant. And I can imagine that if parents aren't as embodied either.
And I think if you have if you have a practice like, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to, be seen as judging any practice because I'm absolutely not. I think all yoga is fantastic. But I think there are certain ways of practicing that are more invite you to be more present to sensation, to experience in your body. Than if you're moving very fast all the time, you're moving energy. But are you given at any given moment in time an opportunity just to explore what that might feel like inside you? So the fast is fine, but then you need to slow down and feel and experience and notice, and where am I? And does that feel different? Does this feel different? Because all of a sudden, those are the pathways that I think take you out of this and into your body. and help you more readily to stay here, because you start to develop a different relationship with your inner experience, your inner landscape. What does it feel like? You know, and yoga really at the end of the day isn't so much about you know, achieving asana as much as it is about navigating the mind.
Yeah.
You know, and how do you navigate the mind? So sometimes when we do a strong practice, it helps to still the mind because it brings you back into a different centered place.
Yeah.
You hold that.
Interesting.
You know, and what could you do in addition to that that would then help hold it and keep the energy flowing so that you don't go immediately back up here? You know, because it's a very subtle energy that we work with when we practice. You know, for me, I'm older anyway, so you know, I'm probably less inclined at my age now to do a very dynamic practice. Still do sometimes. I'm much more interested in the kind of more subtle energy work at this stage. But even when I was, I think that my nervous system is calmer now than it used to be.
Yeah.
Because I've slowed down. You know, and anybody that's living a fast-paced life, you know, is, you know, it's where do we slow down?
Well, that's the trick. We ran our third yoga retreat, and that I think was the real takeaways. That I think everybody was looking to slow down, so we were exploring different practices and different ways to simplify our lives. And we listened to, I just mentioned to you, Kirsty Norton's talk on how to calm the nervous system, how to soothe our nervous systems, and it was very interesting to hear that. I mean, do you have any thoughts about how you might help all of us, grown-ups, children, I should say supposed grown-ups, children, everybody? How would you sort of, what are your go-tos for soothing the nervous system and keeping things slower?
So for me, I do coherent breathing for at least 30 minutes every day.
Oh, wow.
For a couple of years. And I found that to be one of the most soothing practices I've ever done. And I've done hours and hours and hours of all sorts of pranayama, all sorts of teachers, you know, all of which was lovely, but nothing calmed my nervous system as much as this practice did.
Wow.
And this is coherent breathing, when you slow the breath down. And for an adult, you're looking at something like 5 or 6 breaths per minute. You can find chimes on the internet to breathe in and breathe out. I think it's coherence.com has them. And for a child, it's probably double that. So you can actually do it with your child. I've done it with families where, you know, the parent breathes in and out, and the child breathes in and out.
Right.
Right. So it's a different instruction for the child and the parent, but you can hold it within the same chime tone, you know, and that's a very calming, very, very, very calming practice. One of my go-to. The other one is actually just connecting with my own body. You know, there's something about just, you know, it's almost like, you know, when you were really anxious, what would your best friend say to you? Give you a hug. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and in these days now, that's not always possible. Well, I mean, it is more now because they're undoing. I mean, I don't know what people are doing, but for some people it is. For some people it isn't. Now they're undoing the restrictions to some degree. But actually, can you just give yourself a hug? You know, I mean, these things really bring you back into your body, and also very soothing and very calming for you. I also tap my body daily, and I shaking every day.
I just wanted to ask, with your tapping practice, is there a particular way that you do it? Is there any particular instructions on how you can?
Well, yes. I mean, you can. What you want to do? I'm just going to move the camera a little bit. So what you want to do is you want to tap the side of your body,
right?
The side of your body, and then you start with the shoulder, and you go down the arm to the hand, and you tap. Make sure that the palms of your hands, which are really important energy points here, you tap, and then you go up the inside of your arm. And the great thing is that for children, you can get them to choose music. So you get them to do this to music they love. I mean, you could do it to Dolly Parton, you could do it to anybody. I mean, I've had kids doing it to music I've never even heard of. You know, And because they've chosen it, they're more likely to engage anyway, especially slightly older kids.
Yeah.
Especially in that age, I don't really want to do yoga anymore. All that. That can arise at a certain age, especially when they're in that transition between child and adolescence, and sometimes as adolescents. So get them to choose their own music. So then you go down the other arm, you do your chest, you do the upper shoulders, and then you go down the sides of the body, down the outside of the legs, top of your feet, up the inside of your legs, your sacrum, and your kidneys. And you do it I generally do it 3 times in 3 rounds. And by the time you're finished, the whole of your body is in sensation. And there's a kind of freeing energy around it that just allows you, brings clarity. It's one of those exercises that brings kind of a combination of connection back to your body, and at the same time you're alert.
Nice. Okay, well that sounds like a really, really good start for us all, and I love that as a sort of way that we can start off with kids and young adults as well. I interrupted you there. There was something else that you were saying. There was another practice for a daily soothing nervous system practice.
Well, as I said, the squeezing is really important. Breathing. So with the coherent breathing, you can create this beautiful ball of energy. So you can also create visual things with it, right? So it could be, in some of the kids yoga things, I don't use extra tools and things, but there's a ball that expands when it goes like this. I think it's comes with the occupational therapists I've seen use it, and some of the yoga kids yoga teachers use it. It's called a Hoberman ball or something like that. Anyway, it expands as you breathe in and out, but actually you want to take it wider than that. You want to really start to just get the movement going. So as you breathe in, you're opening everything up, obviously. So then you're creating more space for the breath to come in, and then as you breathe out, you're coming. You breathe in, and you're coming out, and you slow it down. So if you use chimes or you use something to note when the end of the in-breath is, the end of the out-breath is, it creates a rhythm. The rhythm also, external rhythm changes internal rhythm. So if you change your internal rhythm to slow everything down, the external rhythm will change your internal rhythm to slow everything down. That's also super helpful. Super helpful.
Nice.
Just in calming, and then we've got this beautiful ball of energy. Now what are we going to do with this beautiful ball of energy? So if we want to be playful with it, we could throw it at each other. We want to just use it to just give ourselves a bit more love, or a bit more courage, or a bit more whatever we feel we need in our bodies. You can just put it in. You can put it into your abdominal area, which of course from a Chinese medicine perspective is your hara. It's your center of energy. Or you can put it into your heart, or if you've got a headache, you put it in your head. There's all sorts of places you could put it. You can put it wherever you like, and then you can start to work. You start to play around with your own energy as well. And children generally like energy balls, and you can make them bigger, and you can make them smaller, and you can move them up and move them down. And if you're really quiet, sometimes they change their feelings as you move them around your auric body, depending on where your energy is. And all of a sudden, you're stiller, you're quieter, because your mind's gone into focus. And actually meditation, the first stage of meditation is keeping your mind in one place. So it might be that our meditation is just feeling our energy ball. And automatically what will happen is the breath settles anyway, because we've settled. It's so interesting how the breath plays with, that combination of, I get calmer, my breath calms, I calm my breath, I get calmer. It can right away.
Yeah. Interesting. I like those practices. And I know that, again, when a lot of my friends who have children, they're having difficulties sleeping at the moment because of the anxiety. And obviously, I think doing these practices would probably, in the daytime, would help. But for going to bed, are you able to sort of recommend any sort of bedtime rituals for kids at all?
Well, I think there's a few things about bed. First of all, you want to get the kids off the screens for at least an hour before bed.
Right.
Because so often today, and I've done it myself, so I'm not here to judge anybody, kids are given screens, they watch TV, it's a treat to me, and you watch TV, you give them a screen to, it's because it's easier, they're tired, so you put them on the screen, but actually, they are the worst things you can do before sleep. I know for myself, if I'm on the computer late, I don't sleep.
Yeah.
And I think any of us that have experienced that would know that, but we haven't necessarily applied that to kids. So I think that's really important. I think not giving children sugar at night is really important,
right?
Because sugar will disturb your nervous system. And you want to just create the calmest environment before bed, right? And it might be that we need to just shake out the energy of the day, so we could just shake that out our bodies and then come into stillness and squeeze ourselves. There are energy points that are useful for sleep. There's a couple on the feet. So I'm going to just move the camera down. I'm going to show you my foot. So can you see my foot? Yeah. So between the big toe and the little toe, the big toe and the next toe across, if you move your thumb down that line, you'll find that there's a dip. And that's a point for sleep, to encourage sleep. There's also points in the hands that I think are useful for sleep. So just squeezing down, not on the joints, but through, between the joints in your hands. That for some children is very calming. The center point here is your solar plexus. So if the child's anxious, there's likely to be a blockage in the diaphragmatic area and the solar plexus area. So this point I'm not saying all these work for everybody. So, you have to find the right key for the right child. This might be a place to soothe. Humming can be useful at night just to settle everything down. Omming, I think laying down on the floor, not in the bed, but actually laying down on your belly on the floor and omming and just experiencing the sensation that the omming has with the earth. And if you're doing it with the child, you could be opposite them and you could send your oms backwards and forwards. And you can make it, again, playful without the energy having to come up really high for sleeping, because that will soothe the nervous system. So anything that will help kind of extend exhalation, which creates the relaxation, which elicits the relaxation response, will help. And then one of the things that that I think is super helpful is just massage. Actually, at night, is massage the child's feet. Draw, with the intention that you're drawing the energy down from here into the feet. Weight through the body is very soothing for anxiety as well. So it might be that you really give the child some squeezing, and just to experience that sense of safety, because anxiety also means you don't feel safe. Right? So how do we feel safe in our bodies? How can we come back and create that level of sense of safety within ourselves? So I need to feel my body to feel safe.
Interesting. I like that. And the foot massage, actually, I think it's something that I was introduced to by a book a while back, and it's something that I've been doing before bed for a while now, actually. And it's good I recommend it for grown-ups too. It's a very sort of grounding way of ending your day and giving yourself a little bit of self-care, isn't it? It's quite a sort of easy way for saying, body, I still care about you.
Yeah, I think it's so important, actually. I think it's so important. I think, we forget the value of it, because, at the moment, we haven't been able to get massage unless you've got a partner that's massaging you for some period of time. And, your partner may or may not be as good a masseuse as a good massage person as well. So, it's, but what that does is it brings, it also changes your chemical state a touch. We forget the value of that too. So if you can't get it from externally, you learn to give it to yourself.
Yeah, right. Do you do any yoga poses with kids before bed?
Sometimes, yeah. I think I think you could do. One of the things that I really like to do with children is to lay them out on the floor, stretch them, and then bring their knees into their chest. I think spinal twist is very soothing. Because you've also got, if you think about the lower chakras, about feeling. If you go back to the kind of principle that when you're anxious, you don't feel safe, you don't feel at home in your body. You need to stimulate the lower chakras to bring that kind of energetic essence in, if you like. So spinal twist from lying down, where you're literally rocking the knees from side to side. That will stimulate and that's very soothing if it's repetitively done. If you just do it once or twice, it's not going to have the same impact. But if you spend some time just literally rocking backwards and side to side to side to side, eventually drop into a twist, come back, drop into another, and repeating it. Because repetition is also really helpful when you're disembodied, because doing something once doesn't embody you. You need to do things at least, I would say, generally from what I've seen, I don't know any science about this, but generally what I've seen and experienced in my own body, you need to do it about 3 times before you really feel it.
Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense. Well, I really enjoyed those tips. If anyone has any specific thoughts and questions or anything for Jyoti today, it would be lovely to hear from you. But yeah, have you been seeing amongst your friends, people with children, have you been seeing a rise in anxiety as well?
Oh yeah.
And as you say, it's mostly connected to the caregivers and the messages that we're sending. Or
I mean, I think it's just, children don't know. We don't know what's going to happen next. And I think children, have a much more, kind of need to know what I'm doing now, what I'm doing tomorrow, what I'm, it's like, what I'm doing tomorrow, mom. Those kinds of questions are much more relevant for a child.
Yeah.
The fact that we, we might be able to tell them what they're doing tomorrow, but the other side of it is that the bigger picture is so unknown at the moment. And there is, there's a real sense of collective anxiety, in the world. I mean, it's not just here in the UK. It's everywhere, I feel. So that, anxiety levels are very high. And then, as we come out of, and I think people begin to get used to lockdown at some level. You now come out of lockdown and you're not quite sure what you're doing out of lockdown or how you're navigating it. And for the parents who are sending their kids back to school at this moment, how, am I okay to do this? Am I not okay to do this? Is my child going to be safe? Is they not going to be safe? I mean, it's terrifying for a parent, actually, to be honest, at this time. Responsible for a little person to make these choices, because we don't really know.
No, absolutely. We don't have all the full facts.
Putting the kids all back in school in September, we don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know how safe the kids are going to be from one room to another, from one child to another. I mean, there are schools down here where classrooms have been closed because kids have got COVID. So, who knows? Do you know what I mean? So the children, children unquestionably going to feel the energy of the parents. That's part and parcel of the whole, kind of dynamic of the family. And I think it's also finding ways to explain to children what actually is happening in the best way you can. And it's okay that we don't know anything, but to not acknowledge them and to try and have make it child friendly. There's actually books been published. I don't know names of any. I've seen them come up on the internet. How to explain COVID to your child. How to explain this to your child. How do we help them to feel okay in uncertain times? How do we help them to find anchors? Because actually, we all need anchors now.
Yes.
And more than ever, we need an anchor, and the anchor can't be an external anchor. It's got to be an internal anchor. And where is our anchors? And how do they change? And how do we navigate that? All ships floating around somewhere, How do we stay still and find some level of safety internally? Because it has to be internal. There's no other place to go now. And now more than ever, there's nowhere to go outside. Whereas before it would have been, okay, so there's a structure, and I go to school, and I do this, and I do that, and I do the other, and I do this, and I do that. It's all been about doing. And now that so much of that's been taken away, we have to come into a place of being and learn how to be uncertainty, because the only thing that we know is uncertainty right
now. Absolutely.
Can we swim with that, or can we sink with that? That's a choice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's that sort of sense of coming home to ourselves, isn't it? Which I suppose is what yoga's all about. But this has brought it back.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's also about, for those that have a spiritual practice, it's also about your connection with the divine, actually, which wouldn't be used in those terms for a yogi, but, Brahma and Atman and all that. But it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. You call it whatever you like. It's universal power, Mother Nature. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can look at it. But I think it's also about being able to feel held in that space as well.
Mm.
You know, if you have that, if you, that's a place where you can go in your spiritual practice. If you have one, if you don't, then you stay embodied. You know.
Yeah.
Because it was all inside us anyway. You know.
I like that, and I like that thought that whether or not, you know, yoga is a spiritual practice, it's all the same thing, because I know for some people it very much is, and for others, you know, that it's movement and embodiment, and I think there's room for everybody.
There's absolutely room for everybody. You know, we're all in this together. I mean, we're all in this together. You know, we're all navigating uncertain times. And I also recognize that for some people, this has been an easier time than others.
Mm-hmm.
You know, mothers of children with, you know, complex needs, and, you know, who are beyond exhausted, you know, without respite and without care, you know, and they're having a much tougher time than I am, you know, other people I know are. And, you know, so it's not one size fits all, but we are equally all navigating uncharted waters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have different challenges to face within that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Hazel, for your comments. Yeah, we'll have to hope that your grandson. Well, we'll put this on YouTube. You'll have to. We'll send you a link for that, so that hopefully you might be able to see some of Jyoti's tips for stress relief for him. But I hope this has been of some help. Is there anything else that you would like to share before you dip back into the sea?
I'm going to dip back into the sea. No, only that you know, we do have free resources on our online platform, so people should feel free to go and navigate, you know, explore them and use them, and hopefully they're helpful. There's yoga nidras for children, there's tapping, there's grounded practices, there's all sorts of things on there. So, you know, there's 2-minute meditations, 1-minute meditations, just any, you know, just a variety of things to really come into more, you know, to be embodied, and hopefully to feel a little bit more peaceful in these very crazy mad times.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'll put a link for that at the bottom of this as well, so everyone can find you. All right, it is absolutely lovely to chat. The dog looks like she's about to leap out the window. And it's really lovely to see you, and it's lovely to have been joined by some of you guys. So thank you very much for joining us, Emma, Rosie, Hazel, and we've got a few other buds there. So thank you guys, and good luck with managing it all through these not easy times.
Absolutely, and you know, we are here as an organisation to help in whatever way we can as well. So, and a lot of our team can help do one-to-ones online. We're doing quite a lot of Zoom sessions now for kids as well. So if people need some, you know, kind of that more personalised support, we can.
That's really, really good to know that you're there. You're there for us all. Thank you.
We are, and I've got a whole team, so it's not just me.
Not just you. Good. I'm glad to hear it. All right, take care of yourself. And
thank you so much. That was really
so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.